Hey guys, it's Daniel here. Now, if you remember last month, I reviewed Lord of the Rings: The Fellowship of the Ring. Yes, I reviewed the start of an amazing trilogy, which is one of the greatest parts of starting a trilogy. It had great characters and some good action sequences and lots of great high stakes for our characters. It gave us a great introduction into the world of Middle-earth and why it needs to be saved. I loved it that much. But I can't say it's the best one, because I am finally here to review the second part of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Yes, I know it's been over a month now, and I should have reviewed it like earlier, but honestly, if I review the third one next month, that wouldn't be a surprise. But I'm finally here to talk about this movie, and I hope to get more reviews out soon. But for now, let's talk about the second part of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, which is honestly even better than Fellowship, The Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers. Wow, what a very, coincidental title for this second Lord of the Rings movie. So, after the events of the Fellowship of the Ring themselves have split. Frodo and Sam are still going on their way to Mordor to throw the ring into Mount Doom, but along the way, they come across a wild creature named Gollum, who was actually one of the last owners of the ring before Bilbo Baggins found it. So now, Gollum agrees to help Frodo and Sam take the ring to Mount Doom. Meanwhile, Aragorn, Legolas and Gimli are on their way to multiple kingdoms to warn them about the attack of Sauron and his army, while also trying to find Pippin and Merry. But they find out, surprise, Gandalf survived his fall during Fellowship of the Ring when he was fighting against the monster creature. So now our Fellowship tried to put together an army to face off against Saruman's army of orcs, while Frodo and Sam and Gollum are still trying to find their way to Mount Doom. And this is where the trilogy carries on in the middle of the story. Now, like I said, Fellowship was such a fantastic way to start off the trilogy. It had great characters and a lot of high stakes for our characters. But the Two Towers set the bar even higher, because I found this movie to be even better than the Fellowship of the Ring. I know some people think it's least, but I personally like it more than Fellowship, because this is where the Fellowship have split. Like, you feel a sense of hopelessness in this movie. You really want our characters to succeed, but you don't know how that's going to happen, because Sauron is like rising an even higher army than before, and he's possessed like multiple elements of Middle Earth. Like, the Ringravers are still trying to find Sam and Frodo, and a character named Grimmer Wormtongue is being controlled by Saruman to control the king. So you definitely sense a bit of helplessness of the movie, and that's what makes the movie even more entertaining. The action scenes here are even better than in Fellowship, because they're even more intense, they're more bigger, it's more high stakes this time, and that's what it makes it more awesome. I mean, just seeing Legolas and Gimli fight off against orcs, those are some of the best scenes in the movie, and honestly, Legolas and Gimli have some really great moments in this movie. I mean, who can forget the scene where they're getting ready for the army of orcs at the end of the movie, and Gimli's just making fun about his height, and Legolas is talking about his height as well. I found that scene to be pretty entertaining. Now, the characters in the film are still the characters that we know and love from Lord of the Rings: The Fellowship of the Ring, and I don't think there's really a lot of point about talking about the characters in this movie, since everybody knows them and everybody loves them. But I will say a few little things about the movie. First of all, Frodo and Sam's relationship in this movie is even more well handled, because the main plot point that you could see that is in the middle of their relationship is Frodo's attachment to the ring. You could see that the ring is slowly enticing him, and you see the fear in Sam's eyes, because Sam sees what Frodo is doing, and Sam is smart, but he's also very worried about his friend, and he wants to like protect his friend from the ring, but he don't know how he's going to do that, because Frodo is being like sort of drawn apart from Sam by either the ring or a little bit of Gollum. But we'll see more of that in Return of the King. And let me tell you, Sam is definitely slowly building up to his Return of the King moment, because you can see him slowly becoming more like the real hero of Lord of the Rings. I think he's a fantastic character. Sean Astin, wow, you're doing even more fantastic than you did before. But again, we'll see that in Return of the King, and I really like his character, especially the speech that he gives at the end of the movie. That I felt like was very genuine and heartfelt and very inspiring. It adds a bit of like hopefulness that Fellowship set up. That's really cool. Meanwhile, Aragorn is leading out the army of Rohan to face off against Saruman's army. You could see the pride that he feels when leading them, and he starts, maybe I could be a king that I gave up on. And then we've got Merry and Pippin. Now, Merry and Pippin's subplot is kind of the least interesting thing about the movie, but in the subplot you can see Merry becoming more of an adult-like character, because in the first film you saw him and Pippin, they were like children then, but now Merry is slowly becoming more brave and determined, because he's inspiring the tree people like the Ents to face off against Saruman's army. And Pippin is still like a little bit of a child, but Merry starts to mature more, and we get to see Pippin's maturity in Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King. But again, we'll get to that when we get to that, and I think that's pretty interesting. So, I guess there's really no point when talking about the characters that I talked about in my review of Fellowship of the Ring, because everybody knows them and everybody loves them. But they still have more interesting parts about the movie in The Two Towers. So, let's talk about the new characters. The first and the best character in the movie that makes it even more interesting than Fellowship. And that is Gollum, played fantastically by Andy Serkis. Wow, he is a awesome character. He's so funny, he's interesting, but he can be pretty scary when he wants to, and that's what he is. Gollum is a creature-like character who, like, separated from the ring for many years after Bilbo Baggins caught it, and now wants his precious back. He agrees to help out Frodo and Sam on their journey. You can see a bit of, like, a caring side to Gollum's personality, because in the film they give little hints about his backstory, because you start to learn that he used to be someone else. I won't go into too much detail about it, but that's what makes his character even more interesting, because we become more engaged about learning what made him who he is and what he was going to do next. But at the same time, you see that he's slowly trying to keep on with his goals, because again, Frodo has the ring, and now Gollum, who now sees the ring on Frodo's neck, wants it for himself. And you start to feel like, oh my god, I hope he doesn't snap and betray Frodo and Sam. But I do kind of see where his character is coming from, because the ring is so enticing and he's been, like, drawn to it for many years. So you can understand why he is who he is, but you also kind of feel scared by him. And again, I personally feel like Andy Serkis as Gollum steals the movie. Like, whenever he's on screen, you can tell that he's just going all the way. I think it's pretty obvious that Andy Serkis must have been having a freaking blast while playing this character, using his motion capture charm and his very groggly voice to add a very sinister turn to the character. But his groggly voice has some comedic moments to show Gollum's fun side. And let me tell you, for 2002 standards, the CGI for Gollum is so perfect. I mean, for some movies in 2002 that have very average animation, like the Scooby-Doo movie or Star Wars Episode 2 Attack of the Clones, it's very shocking and surprising, and yet very awesome to see a CGI character in a live-action movie that almost looks like it's from 2015 standards. That is animation at its best for you, at least in the early 2000s for you. And again, Andy Serkis gives Gollum so many cool things to do, and he gives him some very quotable quotes, but funny quotes as well. I mean, who can forget our favourite scene with Gollum in this movie?
They stole it from us, sneaky little hobbitses. They stole the princess. No, 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 no. Master, yes, press it. First, she'll teach you how to lie. Master's my friend. You don't have any friends. Nobody likes you. I'm not listening. I'm not listening. You're a liar and a thief. No. Murderer.
That whole sequence with Gollum and his good side self facing off against each other is probably the best scene in the movie, because that's Andy Serkis pulling off two expressions that makes him a fantastic actor. I mean, he's portrayed many good motion capture performances, like Caesar in Planet of the Apes, and in some points, probably Snoke in Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, and he was also kind of decent in Black Panther, so he is a fantastic actor, and I personally think they should consider casting him as a motion capture character in more productions in the future. And the character of Gollum is just so awesome. I might have talked a bit more about this character longer than I thought he would, but it's true, he's such a cool character. He's the kind of anti-hero type character that I really love. And we'll definitely see more development for his character in the third movie.
Go away. Go away. I hate you. I hate you. Where would you be without me? Ellen, I saved us. It was me. We survived because of me.
Let's talk about a new character in the movie. One of the most foremost of all is Grimmer Wormtongue, played by Brad Dourif. Yes, that's right. Grimmer Wormtongue is played by Chucky himself. Wow, what a coincidence. I really like those movies, but I'll get more into Chucky if I talk about another Chucky. But let's talk about Brad Dourif's performance in this movie as Grimmer Wormtongue. Grimmer Wormtongue is a character that is being controlled by Saruman to make sure that King Theoden is kept into place, where he cannot do anything. He cannot help his people or do anything. He just sits in a chair and lets Grimmer Wormtongue take all the credit. He's a very interesting character. He's menacing, he's sly, he's manipulative. That's what I expect from Brad Dourif, because after watching the Chucky movies, I think he's good as a villain. I personally think that being a villain is Brad Dourif's best point in the acting. But in this movie, I totally forgot that it was Brad Dourif, because he just seems so different than he was from the Chucky movies, because he's more sly and manipulative this time. Part of it could be due to the point where he's playing himself in a physical role. He's not voicing a puppet, but he's still fantastic. And it came to a point where I forgot that it was Brad Dourif playing a character. He's really good in this movie. And speaking of King Theoden, let's talk about King Theoden, played by Bernard Hill. Now, at first, you don't really know much about his character, because again, he's just sitting in the chair. He's like nothing. He's just a blank wall sitting there and making gargling noises like. But once Gandalf frees him from Saruman and Grimmer's spell, you start to sympathise with him, because he could have stopped a lot of stuff in Rohan from happening. He could have stopped people from dying, but because he was doing nothing, because he was controlled by Saruman, he feels tremendously guilty and wants to get his justice by facing off against the Orc army. And you do feel sorry for him. You do feel sorry for him. You really think he's a strong, determined king, and he's also a very good father to Eowyn. And speaking of Eowyn, Eowyn is an interesting character as well, because she wants to protect her people, and you can see that she wants to fight in battle, but her father is a little bit protective of her. But in the third movie, she starts to become a more popular warrior, But for now, she's like training and trying to get her people to safety. You can feel the determination that she's going through, and I think the actress playing her is fantastic. And I did kind of like the scenes with her and Aragorn. They seemed like a very good character relationship, and there's probably a spark between them. But Aragorn has to deny the spark because his love is with Arwen. And speaking of Arwen, Arwen doesn't have a lot of screen time in this movie. She mainly just spends most of the time at Rivendell, just sitting and crying all the time. But that's profitable because her kingdom has fallen apart, and Aragorn to carry on with his mission because he promised Arwen that he would win, and he thinks that if he fails, he loses her. So it kind of makes sense that Arwen doesn't have much screen time in this movie, but she does get more screen time in the third movie, which again we'll get to later. Now, you know Boromir from the first movie. Well, after his, spoiler alert, death, he gets replaced by his brother, Faramir. Faramir is an interesting character as well. I mean, he does learn about his brother's death, and you can feel a bit of sympathy in his eyes. But you also see that he's distrustful to Gollum, because he's the one who causes Gollum to rebel against Sam and Frodo. And I think he's a very interesting character as well, and he's very awesome. He's very cool. He's very cool when he speaks. He's like, that Boromir is dead. He's my brother. The music by Howard Shore is still amazing in this movie, with multiple themes that still hit your head whenever you hear them. Like Gollum's theme, for example. Whenever you see Gollum, you hear that beautiful theme and very creepy theme. It adds to a dreadful atmosphere to Gollum's character. You know, the whole do 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 do. Wow. And of course the score at the end of the movie with Gandalf leading an army. And speaking of that, the climax of the movie. It is awesome. You can see Aragorn leading the army into battle against the orcs. With the orcs like using multiple unstoppable things like climbing ladders to get across and bursting through the doors. You see both sides being equal at first, which gives a whole like on your toe feeling like who's gonna get the upper hand. And the upper hand does become challenged when the orcs begin winning. And then Gandalf comes into play and saves them all by leading an army into battle. And let me tell you, the music that plays in that moment, wow, that leads to the whole good atmosphere of Gandalf's character, and that's why he's fantastically done by Ian McKellen. It's no surprise that I love The Two Towers. It's such an amazing movie. It's one of the most perfect movies I've ever seen. Well, I wouldn't say perfect, because I will admit that there is one nitpick I had with the movie, and it's kind of a mixed thing, because when I first saw this movie, I really liked this aspect, but after watching the movie again in the cinema, it was a little bit, it was mixed for me, and that's the whole Ents Treebeard stuff. I felt like that subplot kind of held the movie down, especially in the climax of the movie, because the climax is such an awesome epic battle, and then it keeps cutting to the Ents peacefully talking about how they're gonna lose the war, and Merry trying to inspire them in the war. I get you want to add a bit of like softfulness in a loud scene, and I did appreciate that, but it also kind of slowed the battle down and distracted from the awesomeness. But the Ents do become more awesome when they start partaking in the battle, but I felt like the whole subplot was kind of, I think it was one of the most least memorable parts of the movie. But that doesn't stop the movie from being an amazing movie one bit, because overall, I adore The Two Towers. It's probably one of my favourite sequels of all time. It's better than The Fellowship of the Ring. It's more awesome, it's more fast-paced, it's more intense, it's more funny. Gollum, it definitely steals the movie for me. I think you're going to have a lot of fun watching him. And, like I said, the movie's more fast-paced, because I will admit that while I do love Fellowship of the Ring, I will admit that when I went to go see it in the cinema, it felt a bit longer than it did. But this movie didn't really feel like 3 hours long. I mean, it is 3 hours long, but it didn't really feel like that. It felt like either 2 hours to 2 hours and 30 minutes. So it felt more fast-paced than Fellowship of the Ring, which I really love. A lot of people feel like it's slower, but I think it's faster. So overall, I love the Two Towers. You should definitely go see it out if you've watched Fellowship of the Ring, because you have to have watched Fellowship of the Ring, as this movie continues straight after that movie. So definitely go check this franchise out. I give this movie a 5 out of 5. It's a masterpiece of a movie. I know it's the same grade I give to Fellowship of the Ring, but I do love this movie way more. But I'm just gonna give it the same grade anyway. And then we're halfway through. We're almost at the end of the franchise. There's 2 movies done and only 1 to go. Wow, I cannot wait to review the 3rd and final film of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. It is going to be epic as hell. So far, Two Towers is my favourite of the franchise, but I don't know if it will be my favourite franchise, because we still have to watch Return of the King. So let's see what happens. But anyway, what do you think of the Two Towers? Do you love it as much as I did, or did you hate it? Well, if you hate it, why? And let me know, what is your favourite middle chapter in the franchise? I mean, for the Lord of the Rings trilogy, it's the Two Towers. In the Dark Knight trilogy, it's the Dark Knight. So again, definitely go check it out. It's a fantastic, perfect movie, and you're going to have a lot of fun seeing Andy Serkis as a dwarf creature. I think I lost my voice during that impression. And stay tuned, because I will try to get some more videos done. I'm sorry I haven't done a lot of videos, but I had my mock exams. But now my mock exams are over, so I can at least try to get some videos out. And anyway, I'm Daniel, reviewing movies, TV shows, doing videos, and you should
subscribe, like, comment, bell notification on the YouTube channel, or else you will become my precious. I will feast on you with all my blood. Till then, peace out, man.
Oh, I'm gonna need a lot of water to prepare myself for more videos.